us to the next statement on Post Office redress and funding. Minister Gareth Thomas.
With your permission, Madam Deputy Speaker, I wish to provide an update to the House about the Government's Post Office redress schemes and funding. No one in this House, no one in this country will have failed to be moved by the plight of postmasters caught up in the Horizon scandal. The fact that they suffered so much over so many years is both unconscionable and inexcusable. This Government is determined to do right by them and to learn from the mistakes of the past. It's why before the election in July we promised to ensure swift and fair redress for postmasters affected by the Horizon scandal. And in the past 5 months we have made significant progress. To date, compensation has more than doubled since the Government took office, with £499 million paid to 3,300 victims. Of that amount, £79 million has been paid to 232 people from the Horizon's Convictions Redress Scheme, which we set up in July. And as of the 29th of November, the Ministry of Justice had notified more than 520 people in England and Wales that their convictions have been quashed by the Post Office Offences Act. The relevant justice authorities in Scotland and Northern Ireland are also continuing to notify individuals within their jurisdictions. While the progress we've made is positive, we know there are still complex cases to resolve, and we also need to speed up other parts of the redress process. There are many postmasters who are still to be compensated or to have their cases reconsidered. I'm very conscious that for the victims of the Horizon scandal, justice delayed is justice denied, and that our responsibility in government is to work to make the compensation process as effective as possible. That is why we have asked the Post Office to write to over 16,000 former postmasters, encouraging them to come forward if they believe they have a genuine claim. I can confirm those letters have been sent. We want to make sure that every postmaster who is eligible for redress under the Horizon Shortfall Scheme has the opportunity to apply for it. On more complex cases, notably in the group litigation order and the Horizon Convictions Redress Schemes, where my department is directly responsible, and to be seen to do so, we have agreed a new target that 90% of challenge cases in the GLO and HCRS schemes should receive a substantive response within 40 days. We have moved in additional staff, and Sir Gary Higginbottom, who is already assisting us with the overturned conviction cases, has been appointed as chair of the independent panel for the HCRS scheme. We are looking again at the arguments for providing additional redress to members of postmasters' families who were affected by the scandal and to the employees of postmasters. I will report back to the House on that in due course. The Horizon Compensation Advisory Board recommended an appeals process independent of the Post Office and Government for the Horizon Shortfall Scheme. They recommended that it be established, and we accepted that recommendation in September. We are in the process of assembling a team of independent external lawyers to help deliver the appeals process. We expect that contract to be awarded in January, and I will be able to provide a further update on the appeals process early in the new year. There are still concerns about the responsibility of the Post Office to deliver the Horizon Shortfall Scheme and the overturned conviction scheme. The Government is considering the merits of my department taking over this responsibility, but the benefits of such a move must clearly outweigh the disruption that could potentially be caused. We are carefully considering what, if any, intervention we may take. Thanks to a small group of postmasters and their families coming forward this year, alongside parliamentarians such as Lord Beamish, we now know that issues at the Post Office went beyond Horizon, and that some postmasters may have been affected by earlier systems like capture. The Government has responded with swift action. The Kroll investigation published its report into capture on the 30th of September, with a further addendum made on the 18th of October. From this report, we have concluded that there are postmasters who may have fallen victim to flaws in the capture software. Where this has happened, most of us will not be able to fully comprehend what it was like to be accused of mistakes that were never made, ill intent that was never harboured, or crimes that were never committed. Some postmasters, as with the victims of the Horizon scandal, have told us that they were shunned by their local communities, by their customers, friends and neighbours. I speak on behalf of the whole government in expressing how sorry I am for what these postmasters and their families have gone through. For this and all they were forced to endure, they deserve not just redress, but also the restoration of their good names. Uncovering exactly what happened in each case will be a challenging exercise, given the passage of time and the lack of records and evidence. However, we are keen to apply the lessons that we have learned from previous redress schemes and take account of the needs of this group of victims. The government will develop its proposals, engaging with postmasters and other key stakeholders, such as the Horizon Compensation Advisory Board and legal experts. Over the coming months, we want to determine the scope of the financial redress and the eligibility criteria, so that we can bring both redress and closure to the impacted postmasters and their families. And I expect to provide a further update to the House in this regard in the spring. Next year, we also expect to receive Sir Wyn Williams' report. The Post Office Horizon IT inquiry has reviewed the oral evidence that was submitted to it over the course of the last 2 years. And I am thankful to Sir Wyn Williams for his excellent chairing of the inquiry, which closed yesterday. I am also thankful to the Horizon Compensation Advisory Board for their report published earlier this year. In case members of the House are not aware, the Board is recommending that a new independent body be set up that can deliver any future redress schemes on behalf of the government, but also to act in a role similar to that of an ombudsman. The goal, of course, is to reduce the chances of future scandals, or at least expose them more quickly. The government welcomes these recommendations. Any recommendation that might prevent harm, or at least help government to be more responsive to it, is surely worthy of serious consideration. The potential impact of such a body would be wide-ranging, with potential implications which need to be considered for existing redress schemes in the NHS and other issues. We will therefore take time to consult and consider, in particular, the Williams inquiry view before reaching a conclusion. We intend to make a full response within 6 months of the publication of the Williams inquiry report. For too long, decisions about the future of the Post Office have been put off. This neglect has allowed significant issues at the heart of the company to grow and take root. As previously set out, we will publish a green paper in the first half of next year to seek the public's views, insights and experiences to help shape the future of the Post Office. In the meantime, we're taking steps to continue to support the Post Office network and the important services that it provides. I can announce that we're providing a further £37.5 million to subsidise the Post Office network this year. The interim chair of the Post Office, Nigel Railton, is rightly shifting the focus of the business from headquarters to postmasters. The Post Office are also reviewing their costs as their financial position continues to be challenging. He has announced ambitions for a new deal for postmasters, and I'm pleased that the Post Office is going to make an immediate one-off payment to postmasters to increase their remuneration. This is in recognition of the pressures that postmasters face and is expected to be delivered this month. We are working with the senior leadership at Post Office on future opportunities, beginning with banking, so that the company can increase its product offers and commercial revenue and reduce its costs in communities across the UK. Together, we hope these steps will enable the Post Office to move forward, to work better with its postmasters and to better serve the needs of its customers. This government is attempting to fix the foundations, to deal with the injustices of the past and to invest in a different future for the Post Office, so that it can sit at the heart of our communities as a trusted institution once more. And I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Secretary of State Andrew Griffith.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for advance sight of his statement. As Shadow Secretary of State, on behalf of all of these benches, we are committed to working collaboratively with the Government to deliver the appropriate redress to all of those affected by the Horizon scandal and any issues relating to the capture software. Many of the actions that my honourable friend updated the House on were initiated by my honourable friend for Thirsk and Malton. As he said, ministers will have our full support in the swift delivery of redress and the overturning of convictions of those affected by this broad-ranging scandal. We on these benches welcome the redress schemes that have been implemented to remedy the gross miscarriages of justice which have affected hundreds of families across the country. Our only focus now must be on processing claims to get those schemes done as quickly as possible. There remain a number of questions, if I may, following the Minister's statement on which I'd be grateful for his clarity. I understand the Kroll report did not publish any conclusions about the safety of criminal convictions. The Horizon Advisory Group had already made recommendations to the government to introduce legislation to overturn the convictions of postmasters who fell victim to the capture scheme. I read the government has deferred to the Criminal Cases Review Commission that matter, and perhaps the Minister could update us as what conversations he has had with the CCRC in relation to the process of overturning convictions. The redress the Minister has announced is welcome news, but there remains a lack of specific detail for the affected parties as to how they can expect process. Would he set out a timeline for the redress of postmasters affected by capture? The Minister said he has instructed the Post Office to write to 16,000 potentially affected former postmasters, urging them to make a claim, to come forward if they believe they have a claim to make. He said those letters have been sent. Could he confirm when those letters were sent? Is the Minister able to provide an update on his conversations with Fujitsu? How much has Fujitsu so far contributed to date? What meetings has he had? And where are we on that important aspect of this process? It was concerning to learn back in September that only a small handful of claims at that point had been offered redress through the Horizon Convictions Redress Scheme, and that at that point no full and final settlements had been made through that scheme. Could the Minister reassure us to the House the government is not just opening the door to those claims, but actually managing the process of getting those heard, resolved and ultimately redressed? I was pleased to hear and welcome the fact that additional staff have been seconded to facilitate the compensation scheme. Thank you. But could the Minister confirm how many additional staff have been seconded, where they've been seconded from, and give the House the assurance that they will remain seconded for as long as necessary? Finally, we welcome the government's announcement of £37.5 million of network subsidy that was announced in yesterday's written ministerial statement. That is indeed welcome news. Would the Minister clarify that that relates, he says this year, so does that relate to the period up until the end of March 2025? What certainty is there of funding beyond that period so that we can all proceed on a sustainable footing? Is that only for this year, or does that also cover the fiscal year 25-26? Thank you very much.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm grateful to the Shadow Secretary of State for his willingness to work with us collaboratively on providing redress not only to the victims of the Horizon scandal but also to the victims of the capture software issues. He referenced the Kroll report, and as he and I suspect other members of the House who followed this issue closely will be aware, Kroll did not take a specific view on convictions. We are aware that a small number of sub-postmasters who believe they were victims of using capture software and the shortfalls that it generated, and the way in which they were, as a result, treated by the Post Office, have referred their claims to the Criminal Cases Review Commission. And we have instructed the Post Office to work at speed to review what evidence they have got that they can then provide to the Criminal Cases Review Commission to help the CCRC make decisions on the safety or not of those convictions. Similarly, the Scottish Criminal Cases Review Commission are also looking at a number of cases, and we have instructed the Post Office similarly to cooperate with them as quickly as they are able to do so. On capture redress, we met with sub-postmasters who have campaigned on capture, and indeed with Lord Beamish yesterday to update them on the steps that we will now take. We will work at pace. We face as I alluded to in my opening remarks, a significant challenge in terms of the amount of evidence that is available. There is, for example, no central record that has been found as yet of the number of capture users and indeed who they were. We are nevertheless going to be working to design a redress scheme. We will consult with sub-postmasters, we will consult with the Horizon Compensation Advisory Board, and as I've said, I will bring forward an update on where we have got to by the spring next year. On the 16,000 letters that the Post Office have sent out, I can confirm to him they've gone out recently. The exact date, he will forgive me if I don't have access to that immediately, but they have gone out very recently. On Fujitsu, he quite rightly aired again the concern that has been felt across the House about the responsibility of Fujitsu. He will recognise, I'm sure, that we need to wait for Sir Williams's inquiry to report to give us a better understanding of the scale of Fujitsu's responsibilities and therefore potential liabilities. We have said we will respond to Sir Williams's inquiry's recommendations at a pace and certainly within 6 months, and I'm sure he will opine on Fujitsu and we will respond accordingly. On the Horizon Conviction Redress Scheme, we had my then colleague, the Minister of State at the Ministry of Justice, and I had the pleasure of appearing before my Right Honourable Friend's Select Committee to update his committee on the progress with the overturning of the convictions following the legislation last summer. My honourable friend then committed that the Ministry of Justice will have completed their work in assessing the cases by the end of January, and I understand that is still their intention to do so. We have already paid out some £79 billion as part of our responsibilities to provide redress to those whose convictions were overturned. Lastly, on the network subsidy uplift, he will understand that the money is just for this year. There are spending review discussions taking place across government, and the Post Office is an active part of those discussions.
Chair of the Select Committee, Liam Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Welcome much of the Minister's statement today. Redress is being paid out faster, but the truth is that 70% of the budget for redress has still not been paid, and so the Select Committee will be supplying its advice to how we make that faster in a report that we will release on New Year's Day. But let me ask the Minister more about the capture victims that he's identified and set out details for in the House today. Does he believe that many of those victims were convicted? And if they were convicted, would it not be right to have those convictions automatically overturned in the way that we have for other victims of this appalling scandal?
Well, I'm grateful to my Right Honourable friend that the first report of his committee has been to look at the redress schemes on the Post Office. And he will know that progress has been made. But as I alluded to in my opening statement, we recognise that there's still significantly more to do, in particular in regard to the complex cases. Specifically on convictions and capture, I have to tell the House that at this stage we don't know how many people were convicted as a result of the capture software. We are aware of a small number of cases, and as I've said, there are a number of cases with the Criminal Cases Review Commission and indeed with the Scottish Criminal Cases Review Commission. We have instructed the Post Office to review all its records. It does, we know, have some records available for the 1991 to 1999 period, and to get what information it does have to those two bodies so that they can opine as quickly as is feasible on the safety of those convictions or not. We think it is right that that is the first step that we take. We will await to see the judgment. In the meantime, we are going to get on with designing a redress scheme for all those who weren't convicted but who suffered as a result of the capture software.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Steve Darling.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Minister for sharing his statement in advance. Honest, hard-working people had their lives totally wrecked by this scandal, and it is a great shame that this happened over a number of years, and the fact that there was dither and delay over this for far too many years. I'd like to welcome the steps that the Minister has outlined this afternoon to the Chamber. I'd also like to ask the Minister, I'd also like to welcome the suggestions of the Minister around an independent body for compensation. However, this must never happen again. And one way that this Chamber can ensure that that is the case is having a duty of candour that the Liberal Democrats have called for on officials. And I hope the Minister will give this serious consideration to stop this ever happening again. And then finally, I would reflect to the Minister the fact that the Employment Rights Bill is ongoing through the Chamber, and there is a real opportunity, if the government choose to use it, of setting up an office for whistleblowers through this body. Thank you.
Sir.
Well, I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for his opening remarks. In particular, I share his and indeed the whole House's anger at the way sub postmasters, whether they were victims of the Horizon scandal or victims of the capture software issues, the way in which they were treated was quite clearly appalling, and we need to do everything we can do to ensure a repeat of this kind never happens again. He will understand that yesterday was the last day of hearings in the Sir Win Williams inquiry. That Sir Win Williams has said that he will publish his conclusions and recommendations within months. We as a government will then work at pace to consider his recommendations and to publish our response at least within 6 months of that date. The specific ideas that he has referenced in this context today, I'm sure will be part of the deliberations that we consider as part of government. He will forgive me if I, at this stage, wait for Sir William Williams' inquiry recommendations. As government, we will then look at those recommendations and come forward to the House with the future steps we intend to take.
Florence Eshalomi.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And again, I welcome the announcement from the Minister on the Green Paper and the future of the Post Office. And it's also welcome that the government is taking additional steps towards the financial redress for the postmasters who suffered such a horrendous treatment and that scandal. But I am also concerned that this new deal for postmasters is coming at the expense of post office branches across the country, including the Kennington Park one in my constituency. Does the Minister agree with me that it should not be a choice between giving postmasters a fair deal and losing essential high street services? And will he please meet with me to discuss this further?
Minister.
I would be very happy to meet with my honourable friend. I recognise that post offices are a fundamental part of every one of our communities in the UK. It's one of the reasons why the government has been clear that we adhere to and support the commitment on the various access requirements to ensure that every community has a good access to post office facilities. She will know specifically on directly managed branches that no decision on the future of all of those branches or indeed any individual directly managed branch has been taken. I recognise she has particular concerns about the branch in Kennington, and as I say, I'm very happy to meet with her to discuss that particular issue.
Sir Julian Lewis.
I'm glad the Minister chose to reference the excellent work on behalf of the Postmasters of Lord Beamish, better known to many of us as our former colleague Kevin Jones, and I hope the whole House will join with me in congratulating him on his appointment today as the new chairman of the Intelligence and Security Committee. Appointment, by the way, by his fellow committee members, which is exactly as it should be done. May I gently ask the Minister, because I know it may go slightly out with his own department's responsibilities, is there any news or progress about the question of prosecutions for criminal conspiracy, which is something I've raised before, because that is one thing that might act as a deterrent to this sort of terrible behaviour by a gilded, self-selecting class of people who think that their institutional importance is greater than truth or justice.
Minister.
Well, I'm certainly very happy to echo his congratulations to the noble Lord Beamish, and to emphasise again the appreciation I have for his work on championing the concerns of those who are victims of the capture software. He is one of those that we will continue to work with going forward as we put together redress and think about these issues more generally. Specifically on prosecutions that he has raised, he may be aware that the Metropolitan Police have confirmed that they have established a unit and are looking at a number of issues to do with how the Post Office operated. He will understand quite rightly ministers are not involved in those decisions, but the information I have set out is publicly available, and we will obviously all have to wait to see what happens in that particular regard.
Matt Weston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My honourable friend quite rightly said there was an urgent need to speed up the redress process. What we do know is that whilst £500 million has been paid out in claims, £267 million has been spent in lawyers. Nigel Railton told us that between 80 to 85% of all claims are simple cases. So does he agree with me there is a real opportunity to automate the process for so many claims to ensure we expedite their claims far more quickly?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his question, and specifically on what further action we can take to speed up the process of redress. One of the reasons why we introduced a fixed sum payment of £75,000 for those whose claims have been accepted as part of the Horizon shortfall scheme was deliberately to offer an option of faster redress for victims in that scheme. On the question of automation, we've certainly encouraged Sir Nigel Railton and the senior leadership at the Post Office to look at what further steps they can do to speed up claims being considered as part of the Horizon shortfall scheme, where there is particular pressure at the moment, given the numbers that are still coming forward. I welcome the fact that they're coming forward, but we certainly need to see faster action to get through and support getting redress to all those whose claims are being accepted under the Horizon shortfall scheme.
Richard Ford.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I met recently with a couple of constituents, Tony Hibbert, who was a former sub-postmaster, and Colin Chesterton, a solicitor who is representing the constituent pro bono. And during our meeting, they raised concerns about the delays and the inadequacies of the Horizon shortfall scheme in particular. In the case of my constituent, this is in excess of 4 years since the application for the claim and 14 years since he was forced to lose his livelihood. Could I ask the Minister, what percentage of the claimants to the Horizon shortfall scheme have received an interim payment, and what percentage of the claimants to that scheme have had their requests settled in full?
Minister.
Well, specifically on the case that he has set out, if he wants to write to me with more information, I'll very happily look at where that particular case is at. The Horizon shortfall scheme is a scheme that's been run by the Post Office for some time. It initially was closed and then was reopened under pressure. All of those who came forward in the initial tranche of claims have had their claims assessed and offers made, and the majority of compensation that was offered has been paid out. When the scheme was reopened, there have been a substantial increase in the numbers of people applying for redress under the Horizon Shortfall Scheme. And indeed, we are still seeing people coming forward now, and would expect, in particular as a result of all the letters that we've asked the Post Office to send out to sub-postmasters who might have a claim, that there will be further substantial claims under the Horizon Shortfall Scheme. So we are looking at, with the Post Office, at what more we can do to speed up those claims being assessed. The fixed sum payment that we announced in September of some £75,000, where sub-postmasters can choose to accept that in full and final settlement of that claim, has been welcomed by a significant number of sub-postmasters and accepted, and is helping to speed up redress under the Horizon Shortfall Scheme. But I accept there's more to do, and we're looking at what else we can do in that regard.
Clive Efford.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome my honourable friend's statement and the fact that he's putting more resources and manpower into processing people's claims. But I just wonder where the complexity of these claims is coming from. Are we asking for too much information from people in the first place? I watched the evidence of Sir Alan Bates at the Select Committee, and also reading some of the cases in the news. In one case, a person with breast cancer had their case reduced, and you think, well, hang on a minute, this is maybe going too far, a bit churlish, a bit. How much information is being gone through in order to process these cases? And I just wonder if we may want to go back and look at that. I know that because I've spoken to him about it, I know he wants to speed the process up as much as possible. But is that a possibility that we could look at that to more streamline the process?
Minister.
Well, I'm grateful to my honourable friend for his question, and I have looked at this issue. And again, it was an issue that came up at my right honourable friend's Select Committee too. When we write out asking for further information, we are doing so in order to be able to justify the payment of more compensation, not to query the information that has been provided to us by sub-postmasters to date. What we are doing to try and provide reassurance on that point, we are making that now explicit in the letters that we send out to sub-postmasters. We are anxious to reduce the stress and the concern and essentially the trauma that people have gone through already. We do not want that process to be repeated, if at all possible, during the compensation process. So the ask for more information is designed to help us to be able to offer more and fairer compensation to the individuals concerned.
Chris Law.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm listening with some detail about the processes you're going through looking for more information on Horizon. But you've mentioned capture, which goes back to 1992, which is 30 years ago, and you've mentioned a lack of information and you're looking for more detail and lack of who had it. Sorry.
3 times. You. It needs to be he, the Minister, please. Thank you.
Bad habits. Let's get rid of it. My apologies. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm really concerned about the capture system that's more than 30 years old, had 19 different versions. We don't know who used it. We don't know who's been convicted for it. And these people who have been convicted are probably dying every other week just now. So I know you talk about bringing it at pace, but can you make a flying sprint to get to those people urgently to make sure the investigations are carried out and compensation is duly deserved?
Minister.
Well, the honourable gentleman makes a perfectly reasonable point, and it's one that I feel acutely too. I've met with a number of the sub-postmasters who used the capture software and were treated very badly as a result by the Post Office. So I'm acutely conscious of our collective responsibility to those individuals and their families. Some of the sub-postmasters who used capture software have already passed away, which only underlines the point he made and the point that I have made already as well. I can assure the House that we will work at pace. We are working with the Post Office to ask them to go through their records so that we can try to identify, in as much as we can do, how many people were potentially victims of the capture software, and in particular, obviously, to support the work of the criminal case review commissions in looking at whether convictions are safe or not.
Jacob Collier.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the devastating case of Susan Kane, the mother of my constituent Zoe Stokes, highlights the profound human cost of this scandal. Susan, who ran the post office in Hampton and Arden, was falsely accused of theft, forced to sell her business and home in order to repay £25,000 to avoid prison. Tragically, she later died from emphysema, which medical evidence links to the immense stress that was caused by these false allegations. Despite her exoneration, her family have been offered just 40% of their claim, with the Post Office refusing to accept responsibility for her illness. Can I ask the Minister what steps he is taking to ensure that the compensation programme for families like Zoe's is fair, transparent and also takes fully into account the harm that's been caused by this scandal?
Minister.
Well, I commend my honourable friend for championing the cause of the particular family of a sub-postmaster in his constituency. He will forgive me if I don't know the exact compensation scheme that his constituent has applied to. There are, what I would say in general, is that there are independent elements built into each of the compensation schemes to try to ensure that as fair a sum of redress is offered as is possible. In particular, in regard to the Horizon shortfall scheme, we committed back in September to bring an independent appeals process, to set up an independent appeals process, and I hope to have more information for the House in early next year, as we are determined to establish that, to provide that further independent element of that particular scheme.
Vicky Slade.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituent Donna was one of the 555, and she was audited through Horizon, and a loss of £186,000 was found. An employee admitted fraud and was later imprisoned, but Donna was made bankrupt for the loss. Not just the 186, but 250,000, which of course she couldn't pay. Was never challenged. We don't know whether it was 180,000 or 180 pounds. She was awarded an interim payment, most of which was taken by the receivers. But now, the final 75,000 fixed fee, that receiver's amount has been taken again, and she's only been offered £20,000 despite losing everything. Will the Minister personally look at Donna's case and ensure she gets proper redress for this obvious miscarriage of justice?
Well, I'd be very happy to receive further information from the honourable lady, and I will endeavour to reply to her as quickly as I can do. I recognise that there are concerns there about the fairness of the compensation process. There are complex cases that are still to be settled. We are working at pace to ensure those cases are settled where we can do, in particular in regard to the GLO scheme. We have made clear that all those remaining cases that are with us by Christmas, we will be able to get substantial redress paid out to those individuals by the end of March. But as I say, if she writes to me, I will happily look at her letter.
Sean Woodcock.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's known as the Horizon scandal, but in reality, the real scandal is not the failings of software, but the action and deeds of individuals and institutions, as Sir Alan Bates has said. In that light, I would include the misuse and potential abuse of private prosecutions. Will the government be committing to acting on that?
Minister.
Yes, my honourable friend raises a very good point. The Ministry of Justice have made clear their concern about this issue, and are set to bring forward a consultation document early in the new year, I believe, to address exactly that concern.
Sammy Wilson.
I welcome the statement from the Minister today, but does he recognise the frustration that many sub-postmasters still experience? We put legislation through this place months ago as far as the squashing of convictions was concerned. The compensation scheme has been in place for many years now, And yet there are well over half of the individuals who still have not had their cases dealt with. And there's a real fear amongst many of them. I met some of them who came over for the inquiry a few weeks ago. And their fear is that the Post Office is still in denial and is therefore still reluctant to proceed with these claims. Two people give me examples. One who has been asked for information which he doesn't have because the Post Office seized all of the information. The other, the delay is caused because she meticulously kept records, and now they say they've got so many records to go through. It's going to take some time. Does he understand why many people feel that despite the decisions of this House and the commitment of ministers, there is still a reluctance on behalf of the Post Office to deal fairly with these people?
I understand completely the frustration of those sub-postmasters who've waited so long to get redress and to have their cases heard. He will understand that there are 4 Horizon scandal compensation schemes. In terms of the convictions that were overturned by this House this year, the 4th compensation scheme, the Horizons Convictions Redress Scheme, was set up on the 30th of July and has begun paying out significant sums of money to those sub-postmasters who have had their convictions overturned, some £79 million as of the end of November. And as I said earlier, the Ministry of Justice has sought to contact all those individuals who had their convictions overturned as a result of that legislation. They've said they will complete their work by the end of January, and I understand that they are on course to do so. But I'm acutely aware of the Honourable Gentleman's point. It's why we continue to look at, as much as we can do, at what further efforts we can take to speed up the delivery of compensation.
By no means least, Emma Foodie.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the Minister's statement and his commitment to providing redress as soon as possible. One of my constituents, a former sub-postmaster who wished to remain anonymous, attended a surgery recently to share their experience. Accused of stealing over £40,000 due to the Horizon system, they lost their home, their job, their business, forced to pay thousands from their and their family's savings. But compounding the financial loss, of course, was the reputational loss, ostracised by the community, experiencing racial abuse and forced to move away. Appalling in its own right, but as we've heard today, just one of many, many examples. Does the Minister agree with me that any redress must address not just the financial loss, but the further damage done to their lives as a result of the actions of the Post Office?
I'm sure I speak for the whole House when I say I wish that the Honourable Lady's, the example that the Honourable Lady has given were just an isolated example. Sadly, there have been far too many examples of what sub-postmasters went through of a similar nature to the experience of her constituent that she's described today. We absolutely have to get both more speed into the compensation process, and we are working very much to do that. But we will look very carefully at the recommendations of the Sir Wyn Williams inquiry when they are published next year, because his work will be crucial in helping to ensure nothing like this ever happens again.
Can I thank the Minister for the statement?